This was the most calculated revenge born after Maya had used him for pleasure and fun, only for Alex to discover that she had a husband named David. So Alex did not sleep. The sun rose and fell outside his window, but inside his room, time had stopped. For 72 hours, the only light was the pale blue glow of 3 computer monitors and the orange spark of his soldering iron. To his neighbors, he was just a college dropout, a broken boy crying over a girl who didn't exist. But Alex wasn't crying. He was calculating. He began with David. David Vance was a powerful man at a big company. His job was to find failing businesses, buy them for cheap, and then fire everyone to make a profit. He was a man of cold logic. He was exactly like what Alex used to be, but David wore a $5,000 suit and lived in a house built on lies. Then there was Hannah. Alex now knew that Maya was just a character she played. She wasn't a kind stranger, she was a predator. Using his skills, Alex dug deep into the internet. He found her hidden social media accounts and old records. He discovered that he wasn't the first victim. 2 years ago, she had saved a poor artist. Before that, a lonely poet. She would find young men who were hurting, pretend to be their angel, and then throw them away like trash when her husband came home from work. "You like to play with people, Hannah," Alex whispered. His eyes were red from lack of sleep. "But you don't know what happens when a machine breaks." Alex began to build what he called the Vance protocol. It wasn't a physical bomb. It was a virus for their lives. He spent his last bit of money on special antennas and computer programs. He didn't just want them to be poor. He wanted them to lose their minds. The first part of the plan was quiet. David and Hannah lived in a smart mansion. Everything, the lights, the locks, the heat, was controlled by a computer. David often bragged in magazines about how high-tech his home was. That was his first mistake. Alex broke into the house's brain. He didn't change the locks or turn off the lights. That would be too obvious. Instead, he changed the limits. At 3 a.m., when David and Hannah were deep in sleep, Alex would make the bedroom freezing cold down to 12 degrees Celsius. Then at 4 a.m., he would make it boil at 30 degrees Celsius. When the repairmen came the next day, they found nothing wrong. The computer logs said the temperature had been a perfect 22 degrees Celsius all night. David started to look tired. He started to snap at Hannah. The perfect couple was starting to argue. Next, Alex went after David's work. He sent a fake email that looked like it came from the government. When David clicked it, Alex was inside his office computer. Alex didn't steal money. He did something much worse. He moved commas. In a big business deal, a wire transfer for $1 million suddenly became $100,000. A meeting that was supposed to happen on Friday was moved to Wednesday in David's digital calendar, but stayed on Friday for everyone else. David started missing huge deals. He looked like he was losing his mind. His bosses started to whisper that David Vance was losing his edge. While David was failing at work, Alex sent Hannah a gift. It was a beautiful old music box. It arrived at the mansion with no name on the box. When Hannah opened it, it didn't play a song. It played a recording from the night of the accident. She heard Alex's heavy breathing, the sound of the rain, and her own voice saying, "I've got you. I'm not leaving you." Hannah screamed and threw the box into the fire, but the sound stayed in her head. Every time she looked in the mirror, she expected to see the bloody face of the boy from the ditch. She felt like she was being watched by a ghost. 6 months passed. Alex looked like a skeleton. He stopped eating. His skin was pale, and he had a terrible cough that wouldn't go away. His lungs, which had been crushed in the accident, were failing because he refused to go to the doctor. He was too busy working. "Alex, please," his mother Elena begged at his door. "You are dying in this room. Let it go. We can move away. We can start a new life." Alex didn't look up from his screen. "I'm making a new life, Mom. I'm fixing the world's mistakes." He had reached the final part of his plan. He had found David's dark secret. David had been stealing money from his own company and hiding it in secret bank accounts in other countries. It was the one thing David cared about more than his wife, his money and his reputation. Alex didn't call the police. That would be too simple. Instead, he sent all the proof to David's biggest enemy, a man named Mr. Sterling. Sterling had hated David for 10 years. While the trap was closing, Alex went back to his workshop. He looked at his broken motorbike. He used the last of his strength to build one final tool, a small device that could shut down all electronics in a small area. A massive storm hit New York City. The wind screamed through the streets. Alex sat on his rebuilt bike, his body shaking. He felt a sharp pain in his chest, but he ignored it. He had to see the end. He rode to the mansion one last time. Every bump in the road felt like a knife in his ribs. He parked in the shadows across the street. Inside the mansion, the lights were flashing. The police and federal agents were everywhere. They had found the secret bank accounts. David was being led out in handcuffs. His expensive suit was wrinkled, and his face was white with fear. Hannah stood on the balcony, watching her life disappear. Everything they owned, the cars, the house, the jewelry, was being taken away. Hannah looked out into the rain. For a split second, she saw Alex. He was sitting on his bike, watching her. He didn't wave. He didn't smile. He just looked at her with eyes that were as cold as ice. She realized then that the sweet boy she had played with was the one who had destroyed her. Alex turned his bike around. He knew the police would eventually find out he was the hacker. He had left just enough clues to be found once he was gone. He rode toward the Great Queensboro Bridge. The rain turned into ice. Halfway across the bridge, his engine began to die. Alex pulled over. He leaned against the cold metal railing and looked at the city lights. He felt a strange peace. He had finished the circuit. He took out his phone and sent one last email to his mother. It contained the keys to a small house in the countryside, far away from the noise of the city. He had paid for it using a small fee he took from David's secret accounts. It was his final gift to the woman who had sacrificed everything for him. "I built the house, Mom," he whispered. The pain in his chest became too much to bear. His heart, tired of the anger and the work, began to slow down. His eyes started to close. He didn't see Maya anymore. He didn't see the blood or the ditch. He just saw the beautiful, logical glow of the city. As his hand fell, the device on his bike triggered one last time. All the lights on the bridge flickered and went out for a single second, a final hum from the engineer. The silence was finally perfect. Alex was gone, but his revenge was complete. Maya and David were left in the dark, and Elena finally had a home where she could sleep in peace. The morning after the storm, New York was unusually quiet. The ice had covered the city in a glass-like skin, making everything look beautiful but cold. On the Queensboro Bridge, a police officer found a young man leaning against the railing. To the officer, it looked like the boy was just watching the sunrise. But when he touched Alex's shoulder, the boy didn't move. He was cold, his skin the color of the winter sky. The news of Alex's death didn't make the front pages. The headlines were too busy shouting about the fall of the Vance empire. David Vance was in a high-security cell, facing 20 years for fraud. Hannah Vance, the woman who played at being an angel, was hiding in a cheap motel, her bank accounts frozen, and her friends gone. While the world talked about money and scandals, a small white van drove Alex's body back to Queens. The funeral was held on a Tuesday. It was not a grand event. There were no cameras, no expensive flowers, and no wealthy friends. The sky was a dull, heavy gray, as if the clouds themselves were tired of carrying the rain. Elena stood by the open grave, her small frame looking even smaller in a black coat that had seen better days. Her hands, usually so busy cleaning and scrubbing, were still now. She gripped a single red rose. Behind her stood Nicholas. He looked lost. He had spent years trying to get Alex to live, but now he realized that Alex had been dying ever since the night of the accident. "He was so smart," Elena whispered, her voice breaking the silence of the cemetery. "He could fix anything. He could make a broken radio sing again. He could make a dark room bright with just a few wires." She looked down at the wooden casket. "But he couldn't fix his own heart. He let the darkness in, and it took him away from me." Nicholas stepped forward and placed a hand on her shoulder. "He thought he was saving you, Elena. He thought this was the only way to give you the life you deserved." "I didn't want a house," she sobbed, the tears finally falling. "I wanted my son." As the workers began to lower the casket, a strange thing happened. A few blocks away, the power grid hummed. The streetlights around the cemetery flickered on and off in a rhythmic pattern, almost like a heartbeat. It was as if the city's wiring was saying goodbye to the one person who truly understood how it breathed. A week later, Elena moved into the house in the countryside. It was exactly what Alex had promised. It was quiet. The air smelled of pine trees instead of exhaust fumes. There was a small porch where she could sit and watch the birds. But as she walked through the rooms, she felt a heavy weight. Every piece of wood in the house was paid for by revenge. The kitchen tiles were bought with David's stolen money. The roof over her head was built from the ruins of another family's life. Alex had won. He had destroyed the people who hurt him. He had provided for his mother. But in doing so, he had turned himself into the very thing he hated. He had become a man who used people as parts in a machine. He had traded his soul for a strategic victory. Elena sat in the living room, looking at a photo of Alex when he was 10 years old. He was holding a screwdriver and smiling, his face covered in grease. That was the boy she loved, the one who saw beauty in a circuit because it was honest. The man who died on the bridge wasn't that boy. That man was a ghost made of anger. The story of Alex, David, and Hannah is a warning for all of us. In the beginning, Alex was the victim. He was a good person who was treated cruelly by people with power. We want him to win. We want to see David in handcuffs and Hannah in tears. But we must look at what it cost Alex to get that win. The danger of the eye for an eye. Alex thought he was an engineer fixing a problem. He saw David and Hannah as broken parts that needed to be removed. But humans are not machines. When you spend all your time planning how to hurt someone else, you stop growing yourself. Alex stopped studying. He stopped riding his bike for fun. He stopped talking to his friends. He let his body rot because his mind was poisoned by the thought of David's failure. Revenge is like a fire. It might burn down your enemy's house, but if you hold the fire in your hands, you will get burned too. Alex died because he refused to heal. He chose to spend his last breath on hatred instead of life. Alex left his mother a beautiful house, but he also left her with a broken heart and the knowledge that her comfort was bought with blood and lies. Sometimes the best way to help the people we love is not to get even, but to move forward. If Alex had used his genius to build a new company or finish his degree, he would be sitting on that porch with his mother today. The world can be messy, loud, and unkind, just like Alex said. People will hurt us. People will lie to us. But when we choose revenge, we give those people power over us forever. David and Hannah owned Alex's mind for the last 6 months of his life. They decided when he slept, what he thought about, and how he spent his money. If Alex had let go, he would have been free. By seeking revenge, he stayed their prisoner until the moment he died. Sometimes the most strategic thing you can do is to walk away. Let the world handle the Davids and the Hannahs. Focus on your own hum, your own light, and your own peace. Because in the end, a life well lived is the only revenge that doesn't turn against you. Alex was a master of wiring, but he forgot the most important rule of engineering. If you overload the system with too much heat, the whole thing will melt. Don't let your heart melt from the heat of revenge. Learn to let go so you can keep living. I hoped you liked the story. Make sure to subscribe and like this video for more stories.